Hello and welcome to our Institute of Middle Eastern Studies workshop for educators. Today we will be discussing how to teach topics on the Middle East and North Africa using graphic novels. This workshop will provide an overview of Middle East and North Africa themed graphic novels and their role in education. We will begin by exploring the MENA region's history and how graphic novels have become an effective medium for representing the region's cultural and political complexities. Key themes such as migration, identity, minorities, and conflict will be highlighted as essential to understanding the region's dynamics, with the focus on how graphic novels can bring these topics to life for students. We will also discuss the growth and recognition of MENA graphic novels in recent years and their increasing role in education. Finally, the workshop will offer practical teaching strategies such as creating discussion guides and lesson plans to integrate these graphic novels into the classroom, making complex themes more accessible and engaging for students. The Middle East includes countries such as Bahrain, Cyprus, Egypt, Iran, Iraq, Israel, Jordan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Oman, Palestine, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Turkey, the United Arab Emirates, and Yemen. North Africa encompasses Algeria, Libya, Morocco, Tunisia, and Sudan. This region is known as the birthplace of major world religions such as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and the cradle of ancient civilizations such as Phoenician, Mesopotamia, and Persian civilizations, which contribute to its profound cultural diversity and artistic contributions throughout history. The region's geopolitical importance is emphasized by its vast oil and gas reserves, as well as its role in ongoing conflicts and peace processes that shape global dynamics. The diversity within Middle East and North Africa is striking. With a rich variety of languages, religions, and cultures, major ethnic groups in the Middle East today include Arabs, Iranians, also known as Persians, Turks, Jews, Kurds, Berbers, also known as Amazighs, Armenians, Nubians, Azeris, and Greeks, making it a complex and multifaceted area of study. To talk a brief history of graphic novels in the MENA region, we can include that the use of graphic novels as literary and educational form has relatively recent but growing presence in the MENA region. Historically, comics and illustrated narratives existed in various forms, including political cartoons and serialized stories in the early 20th century, mainly in Egypt. However, the graphic novel format has gained recognition in the last few decades, particularly as authors from region or diaspora sought to address complex themes of political change, war, migration, and personal identity. Early examples, during the mid-20th century, countries like Egypt were known for producing comics such as Samir and Al-Mastur, which cater to children but also contain subtle social commentaries. In the modern growth, the popularity of graphic novels surged in the 2000s with internationally recognized works such as Persepolis, which challenged stereotypes about life in the Middle East over time. More creators began to use this medium to explore nuanced and underrepresented narratives from the region. Significance of the MENA representation graphic novels have proven to be an effective medium for portraying stories from the MENA region, where complex political histories, conflicts, and cultural transformations are often oversimplified or misunderstood in mainstream media. Representation in these works is crucial for a few reasons. First, challenging the stereotypes. Through authentic storytelling, MENA-themed graphic novels offer an alternative narrative to the often negative or reductive portrayal of the region in global media. They allow for more humanizing and multidimensional perspective. Second, bridging cultural gaps. The graphic novels from the MENA region or by MENA authors can help bridge cultural gaps, offering readers more different backgrounds and an accessible way to learn about life in these countries, the experiences of individuals, and the impacts of historical events. Three, empathy and global awareness. By presenting personal stories in an engaging visual format, these novels foster empathy and encourage readers to reflect critically on global issues such as war, displacement, and cultural identity. The importance of graphic novels in education represents itself as visual literacy. Students must analyze and interpret visual elements alongside text, developing their ability to read images critically. It also has multimodal comprehension. Combining text and visuals requires students to synthesize information from different modes, enhancing their overall comprehension skills. Inference and to the context, the gaps between panels, known as gutters, require readers to infer what happens between scenes, promoting deductive reasoning. Also, including symbolism and metaphor in graphic novels, challenging students to uncover deeper meanings and themes. It also offers character analysis, which, with the visual depictions of characters, expressions, and body language, add depth to character study, encouraging nuanced interpretation. The cultural and historical context in many graphic novels address complex social issues or historical events, prompting students to consider broader contexts, which also bring a unique format of narrative structure in the graphic novels that allows for nonlinear storytelling, helping students analyze complex plot structures with authors' craft. Students can examine how our artists and writers collaborate to create meaning, fostering and understanding of creative decisions. Finally, comparing graphic novel adaptations with original texts encourage analytical thinking about medium-specific storytelling techniques. Accessibility to complex themes can make challenging topics more approachable, allowing students to engage with sophisticated ideas. Understanding the MENA-themed graphic novels, it has different genres and themes. Genre that includes memoirs and autobiographies, contemporary social issues, and historical fiction. In its themes, graphic novels in the Middle East, highly effective in portraying complex, sensitive issues. It helps to understand complex historical, political, and cultural topics for readers, such as conflicts, historical narratives, biographical narratives, conflict and war, migration and identity, minorities, such as ethnic, religious, or political. And we will examine examples from each type. Exploration of MENA key themes. 1, migration and identity. Migration, especially forced migration due to conflict, is a key theme in many MENA graphic novels, both in Arab in America and Welcome to the New World address the struggles and adaptation challenges faced by Arab immigrants and refugees in the United States. Migration can also happen post-colonial migration, like labor migrations to Gulf countries, refugee movements due to conflicts that, for example, Palestinian exodus, Syrian civil war, etc. And we also can examine current migration patterns like intra-regional migration, for example, from Syria to Lebanon, migration to Europe and North America, etc. In addition, representation in Welcome to the New World, Syrian families' journey to and within the United States, challenges of cultural and adaptation of language barriers, impact of global events such as travel bans on migrant experiences, and also the portrayal in an Arab in America graphic novel. It portrays the experience of Arab Americans post 9/11 and the themes of discrimination and cultural misunderstanding and struggle with identity and belonging. Here we see migration as a transformative experience. In Arab America, we see alienation, identity conflict, discrimination and social barriers, and cultural displacement. In the graphic novel Welcome to the New World, we see the refugee journey and trauma, cultural and language barriers, and also the resilience and hope of this family by creating a positive experience of that. Common themes between both novels is the emotional impact, cultural displacement, and social challenges. When using a theme or books in these areas or in these genres, we can have questions for discussion, such as how do experiences of characters in these novels reflect real-world migration issues? Also, what challenges do these characters face in maintaining their cultural identity? Another question for teachers to ask or discuss with the students is how do these graphic novels humanize the migration experience? In what ways can graphic novels provide unique insights into the migrant experience that traditional text might not? As a historical narrative, the graphic novels brings historic events while telling the story behind it. And we can see this in two examples, Best of Enemies and Jerusalem Chronicles from the Holy City. In the book Jerusalem Chronicles from the Holy City, the theme of historical narrative is represented through Delisle's personal observations as an outsider living in one of the world's most politically and religiously complex cities. While the graphic novel is not a strict historical account, it blends Delisle's day-to-day experiences with the broader historical context of Jerusalem, highlighting the ongoing tensions between Jews, Muslims, and Christians. His interaction with locals and visits to significant religious and political sites serve as windows into the city's deeply rooted historical conflicts. He offers and brings attention to the layers of history that define Jerusalem as a city of immense religious significance. He reflects on how the city's long history, filled with religious and political struggles, shapes its present-day reality. The historical narrative is woven into the graphic novel as Delisle explores the deeply contested spaces such as the Old City and religious landmarks such as Western Wall and the Dome of the Rock, emphasizing the weight of history in the region's ongoing conflicts. He also offers subtle commentary on modern history by addressing the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, often portraying the division of the city and the impact of modern politics on its historical and cultural heritage. Through his outsider's lens, readers are introduced to the ongoing historical narrative of occupation, settlement, and the fraught coexistence of different communities in the city. In the book Best of Enemies, Pierre Filiu brings a historical overview of U.S. Middle Eastern relations and focused on the complex relationship between the United States and the Middle East. It traces key events from early 19th century to the present, illustrating how historical moments have shaped the political and cultural dynamics between the two regions. The author also uses graphic novel format to present complex historical events, such as the Suez Crisis, the Iran hostage crisis, the U.S. involvement in the Gulf Wars, making these events more accessible and engaging for readers. He also presents visual storytelling of historical events, highlighting how the US has influenced political outcomes in the Middle East. The use of illustrations allows for a more nuanced portrayal of historical figures, events, and geopolitical strategies, while the narration provides detailed context about how each historical moment contributed to the development of the fraught US-Middle East relationship. Also, this novel examines the critical examination of historical power dynamics, as it examines the role of the US as a foreign power in the region, offering readers insight into the long history of intervention, alliance, and conflicts. The graphic novel does not shy away from exploring the historical consequences of the US policies in the Middle East, such as the rise of extremism and the destabilization of certain regions. It also presents a layered historical narrative showing how past events continue to shape present-day realities. Jerusalem brings a personal perspective on historical tensions, layers of history and religion, and subtle commentary on modern history, while Best of Enemies brings historical overview of US-Middle East relations, visual storytelling of historical events, and critical examination of historical power. The common theme between both books is the exploration of complex historical contexts, blending personal and global histories, and illustrating historical impact on the present. Three, biographical narratives. Biographical narratives brings two types of books, which is the Arab of the future, which is culturally about the childhood of a mixed married child who was born to a French mother and a Syrian father, but they live in Libya and then in Syria and then in France. So he summarized his childhood memoir of growing up between Libya, Syria, and France, and the theme is cultural identity, authoritarianism, and coming of age. For example, he talks about culture reflection, saying that, quoting, "My father dreamed of raising me to be an Arab of the future, someone who would embody the best of Arab culture, but I often felt torn between my French and Syrian identities," end of quote. He also reflects on childhood innocence and understanding of political realities. Quote, "I did not understand why people had to salute Gaddafi's portraits, but I knew that not doing so could get you in trouble." End of quote. Family dynamics and influence, he reflects to it as, quoting, "My father believed in the greatness of the Arab world and wanted to raise me in Syria, but my mother quietly longed for the freedoms we had in France." End of quote. He also touches on historical and political context, quoting, "In Assad's Syria, everyone was afraid to speak their minds, and the secret police were always listening, even in the most ordinary conversations." End of quote. Riyadh also presents humor and tragedy in daily life. In an opening quote, "In Libya, we lived in a newly built house that had no door handles because Gaddafi's government believed door handles were unnecessary luxuries." End of quote. If we compare the Arab future and Persepolis, we see Arab future had childhood and cultural displacement, personal reflection on political regimes, humor, and tragedy. In Persepolis, it brings the same coming of age in revolutionary Iran, and it balances personal versus political views and also emotional depth and memory. The common theme between the two graphic novels is childhood in politically charged environments, intersection of personal and political history, identity, and cultural conflict. While we explore the MENA themes, we cannot leave without touching on war and conflict. And these are the covers of the books of Joe Sacco, Footnotes in Gaza and Palestine. He summarized the history of 1948 war in these 2 pages with the Balfour Promise and how it really manages to include the land without people for people without land. George Sacco, in Footnotes in Gaza, offers a detailed exploration of 1956 massacre of Palestinians using graphic journalism to bring attention to forgotten or marginalized events in the region's history. Throughout Footnotes in Gaza, Sacco weaves together historical investigation, journalistic inquiry, and graphic storytelling to shed light on these overlooked events and their lasting impact on people of Gaza. For example, this topic or these books in the class can be, the teacher can include it as asking students to create timelines of conflict covered in Footnotes in Gaza and compare it with other historical conflicts. And this will encourage discussions on how the graphic novel format influences their understanding of these events compared to traditional textbook or news media. Both books, Footnotes in Gaza and Palestine, they have, in Footnotes of Gaza, they have forgotten atrocities and historical conflict, personal accounts of war, ongoing conflict of cycles of violence. In Palestine, he addresses human impact of occupation and resistance, neutrality and bias in media. The common theme between 2 books is misrepresentation or downplaying the suffering of Palestinians, critical examination of historical narratives, cycles of violence, and humanizing war and conflict. In this class also, in this theme, war and conflict, we can have pre-reading activities, for example, to understand historical context for Jerusalem. We can create a timeline of Jerusalem's history. For Best of Enemy, students can create a mind map of what they know about U.S. Middle East relations. It also, on personal perspective, Jerusalem focused now, we can draw a map of neighborhoods, making places of personal significance and discussing how personal experiences shape our view of places. And during readings, we can discuss how the story has color coding, the style of the author with visual analysis, of course, and to understand the cause and effect of the drawing and the adaptation note for younger students. The visual analysis and personal connection aspects play a great role to understand the background history of the region. Also, one of the key themes is minorities. Here we will be looking at Their Blood Got Mixed and To Kobani Calling. Both graphic novels are journalistic studies in northern Syria about, and they tell the story of the Kurdish minority and the Kurdish fight, the YPG and YPJ, against ISIS and also against the Arabs or the opposition that working together with ISIS to take them out. In Their Blood Got Mixed, the protagonists are Kurdish fighters of the YPJ and YPG who represent the Kurdish people's fight for autonomy and the revolutionary ideals, exclusivity, democracy, and gender equality. Ethnic and religious minorities are also highlighted as key participants. In Kobani Calling, Zoro Kalkari himself is the protagonist. with the story being told through his perspective as an outsider documenting the conflict. The Kurdish fighters, particularly the women of the YPJ, play a crucial supporting role, representing the broader revolutionary struggle against ISIS. In Their Blood Got Mixed, since the story is not told through a protagonist, so it talks like a third-person narrative perspective, providing an overarching documentary-style account of the Rojava Revolution and the war against ISIS. Their Blood Got Mixed offers Kurdish struggle for autonomy, inclusion of other minorities, and women as a marginalized group. In Kobani Calling, we see the Kurdish fight for recognition, protection of others' minorities, intersection of global minorities that includes Christians and Yazidis in the region. Both books share the themes of revolutionary ideals, multiculturalism and protection of other minorities, gender equality and women's empowerment, war and conflict and fighting ISIS, and resistance against historical marginalization. When studying such topics, students can analyze how graphic novels portray minority experiences focusing on cultural identity, discrimination, and resistance. They can use Their Blood Got Mixed or Kobani Calling to have concept mapping, such as creating a mind map of what they know about minorities. In addition, they can have media analysis by examining current news articles about minority issues in the Kurdish region, for example, comparing it to other minorities. And also they can study the character tracking. For both books, students can use the character chart to track main characters, noting their backgrounds, experiences, development throughout the story, visual symbolism, narrative techniques, and comparison chart that they can create to have highlighting similarities and differences in minorities' experiences. To integrate graphic novels into curriculum, for example, we can see it in 4 different points. Develop lesson plans, encouraging student-led discussions and projects, aligning with learning standards and objectives, using graphic novels to discuss complex topics. We will go with number 1, developing lesson plans. For example, when teaching Persepolis, or any of these topics, a lesson plan would focus on the main idea, which was the Iranian Revolution, highlighting the key historical events. And also the novel can be broken down into thematic sections to understand, to tie it to the broader historical studies. As an activity, students can select a chapter, analyze the visual textual elements, and present how they convey emotions and political critique. This will help students to connect historical facts to personal narratives. Also, by encouraging students, number 2, encouraging student-led discussions and projects. For example, if we read The Photographer, students can ask to reflect on the role of humanitarian workers in conflict zones, create a classroom debate where one group defends the intervention while another critiques it based on evidence from the novel and current events. Students also can create their own graphic novel pages summarizing key events from the novel, encouraging both creative expression and critical engagement. 3, aligning with learning standard objectives. For example, in the Arab of the Future, we can link the themes to national social studies or language arts standards that require analysis of personal narratives, global perspective, and political systems. Educators or teachers can also tie these works into units on dictatorships, cultural diversity, and family dynamics. For example, students can be assigned reflective essays on research projects on how the graphic novels portrayal of Syria and Libya under authoritarian rule compares to students' textbook material, encouraging cross-source analysis. Number 4, using graphic novels to discuss sensitive or complex topic. For example, when dealing with war and conflict in MENA region, sensitive discussions can be initiated using graphic novels, which can explore some events and analyzing the visual narratives that can soften the harshness reality of political repression, making it accessible to high school students to discuss censorship, for example, freedom and state violence. An example activity, for example, the classroom can host a discussion on censorship and its effects on personal freedom, supplemented with clips or by part of interviews or part of articles about political repression in MENA region. Using graphic novels in classroom application as primary sources to analyze historical events. For example, we can use Footnotes in Gaza by Joe Sacco to examine specific historical incidents in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, such as having the student analyze panels depicting key events, comparing them with traditional historical accounts, or comparing and contrasting media, the portrayal of U.S. Middle East relations in the Best of Enemies with academic text on same topic. In visual literacy exercises, we can examine how color is used symbolically in the Arab of the future to represent different countries and atmospheres, by having students create color key explaining the emotional and cultural significance of different hues used in the book. In cultural immersion, for example, using Jerusalem Chronicles from the Holy City to explore daily life in different quarters in Jerusalem by creating virtual tour of Jerusalem based on scenes from the book, highlighting cultural diversity. Current event analysis, for example, connecting historical events in Palestine of Joe Sacco to current news about Israeli-Palestinian conflict by having the student find recent news articles that relate to themes or events depicted in the graphic novel. Policy analysis and proposals, for example, after reading Welcome to the New World, analyzing refugee integration policies by having students draft a policy proposal for improving refugee resettlement based on issues highlighted in the book. Interdisciplinary connections, for example, collaborating with the art department to analyze artistic techniques in Footnotes in Gaza, or creating a joint project where students recreate a scene from the book explaining both its historical significance and artistic choices. Group discussions and debate can be created, for example, using their blood-gut mix to spark debates on alternative governance models. By organizing a mock UN session where students represent different political systems discussed in the book. Creative projects can be used as well. For example, after studying several graphic novels, students can create their own short comic about a current Middle Eastern political issue. By providing storyboard templates and guiding students through the process of combining visuals and text to convey complex ideas. Perspective-taking example, for example, by using Arab in America to explore the experience of cultural displacement, and bringing the activity to students by having them write diary entries from the perspective of characters in the book, reflecting on their experiences and emotion. Using graphic novels to discuss complex topics is very important, and we can do that by establishing a safe space for discussion, making sure that the students know that everything is okay. Number two, providing historical and cultural context to the story, encouraging multiple perspective and talking about different points of views, guiding students to reliable sources for further research, and assigning research projects where students must use and cite at least 3 different types of sources, that is, academic journal, news article, primary historical document, to support their analysis of the theme from one of the graphic novels. And this can be done under 4 points. Number 1, techniques for analysis, which can have panel analysis, text-image relationship, narrative structure, and character development. In number 2, in their assignment, can have providing multiple perspective, presenting diverse viewpoints on complex issues, showing personal experiences within larger historical context, challenging stereotypes and preconceptions. And in number 3, why we use graphic novels to discuss complex topics. It's also addressing sensitive content, preparing students for potentially disturbing material, contextualizing historical events, and encouraging respectful dialogue and critical thinking. Number 4, connecting to current events, using graphic novels for discussing contemporary issues, comparing historical events in novels to current situations, and encouraging students to create their own graphic narratives about the news. Now, we will do a group activity distributing some guidelines to prepare and create a lesson plan in groups for class activity, for classroom activity, and a lesson plan for a book. You will choose your own book and you will write a lesson plan. Forming 3-4 educators or teachers, we can assign a graphic novel, or you can choose any graphic novels that you want. And within 10 minutes, we can review what you and evaluate and discuss each of your work. Some points in analyzing and creating a lesson plan for a classroom: by analyzing the graphic novels, identify key themes, historical events, or visual elements. You will define learning objectives for that. For example, 2-3 measurable learning objectives based on the content. For example, students will analyze the impact of political regimes on family life in 1980s Syria. And you will outline lesson structure. That means create basic outline for introduction, main activities, and then the conclusion. And then you will develop main activity to design and engaging activity incorporating the textual elements of the graphic novel. And you will do the plan assessment for each other and the class. That means deciding how to evaluate student learning, and then you will consider both formative and summative assessment options. Tips for incorporating workshops themes. We have visual literacy that include at least one activity focused on analyzing visual elements, that is color, panel layout, symbolism, etc. Second, historical context that ensure the lesson plan includes background information on the historical period or events depicted. 3, cross-cultural understanding by incorporating elements that promote empathy. 4, interdisciplinary connections by considering how to link the content to other subjects. That means art, literature, social studies, geography, etc. Current events. 5, to include a component that connects the graphic novel's themes to contemporary issues. 6, critical thinking. Design questions or activities that encourage students to analyze and evaluate information. 7, differentiation. Consider how to adapt the lesson to different learning needs or different backgrounds. Sharing feedback, that each group will share their feedback and discuss the challenges and opportunities, and then we will reflect on the next steps by we will write down the key takeaways from these activities and group discussion. As teachers and educators, we are requested to build a diverse library collection. That means the importance of representation in literature from cultures, different backgrounds, religion, ethnicities, etc. Curating a balanced collection for different grade levels. It includes elementary, middle school, and high school. It's up to the educator to evaluate the level of the book that they will include in the curriculum, and addressing potential challenges or concerns that come up from including the graphic novel. That's like politically, socially, in religious, as a religious aspect as well. It's all related to the evaluation, and the key elements that goes to is the teacher. In GW, we provide also resources, and we have given you the list of recommended graphic novels. We also will share as a QR with you the websites and articles and further readings, organizations supporting MENA literature and education, and these hyperlinks, graphic novel templates, and related material in the PowerPoint, Middle East and North Africa Graphic Novels Guide at Gelman Library, Global Resources Center Graphic Novels, by world regions, because we don't have it only on the Middle East and North Africa. We have them in different regions as well. That includes Africa, Asia, that includes Japan, China, Central Asia, and also Eastern Europe and the republics of the ex-Soviet Union. As a conclusion, we can talk about the pros and cons for teaching with graphic novels. Pros to teach by using graphic novels: we will have enhanced engagement, visual literacy development, diverse representation, critical thinking, cross-disciplinary integration, addressing controversial topics, creative expression, and improved comprehension. The cons of teaching with graphic novels: perceived lack of seriousness, limited availability that address each topic, resource intensive, that means you have to do your own search and your own work to find the reliable source, misinterpretation, diverse literacy skills, sensitive content, assessment challenges, and over-reliance on visuals. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask, and everything, all the information available on accessing workshop materials is at your hand. Thank you very much for coming to this workshop. I appreciate it, and if you have any question, please don't hesitate to contacting us. Thank you. Bye.